let's see. Comebacks can't occur from a strictly rational factor. Strange things have to happen, like Mikel Merino hitting one of the crossbar and it going out. I mean, this is going to happen if there's a comeback. If Madrid is still in it, when I say in it, I mean with chances at the 60th minute.
Quique Recio from Madridismo al Día. Hello, how are you, man? Should I mention opening the doors of the asylum and the bearded lady and all that has to happen on Wednesday, or is that not in your plans? How are you? Hello, man.
Hello. Very good day to everyone. Well, I think we're going to have to open the doors of several asylums. If we could, we need several asylums there to truly immerse ourselves in the atmosphere of the comeback, because comebacks are a matter, Miguel, of to have faith. I mean, the first thing you need, apart from many things, is to start with a point of belief, of will, and of faith that goes beyond the strictly football. And I will even tell you that it is good in the sense that if we rely strictly on the football being shown by Real Madrid, obviously, there aren't many reasons for a comeback. But on the other hand, luck, and that's something I think many Madrid fans will hold on to, is that Real Madrid doesn't operate within the normal. It operates within aspects that we could almost describe as paranormal, or that are really very different from the common, right, of the football material. So I think we are going to analyze a lot of a strictly football matter, which we like, but we are also going to experience it a lot, because that's why we are Real Madrid fans, in a matter strictly related to faith.
Of course, let's see. It's an element that shouldn't be... It's not that it should be discarded. It's that, for me, it's a central element of all those strange comebacks that have happened at the Bernabeu in recent years. You and I last spoke before the match. I mean, before the London match. So we didn't include all these variables. Later, I spoke with Eloy Lesina. And of course, I started to catch on, because he saw strange things. Strange things can happen. I mean, he said, I see the game within the chaos. It's more of a player's game than something Ancelotti could influence. And then strange things happen. He was convinced that, well, Raya would have trouble with the ball, those kinds of things that...
Donnarumma, right? A bit of Donnarumma.
What happens is that Benzema wasn't there, who used to press the goalkeepers a lot. But, well, many things have to do a bit with madness, with the paranormal and such. Well, they need to have at least a football basis, because that Madrid that did those things also did them because of the players they had. But now we also have great players, but there's something in this locker room that just doesn't quite... Hey, you never know. There might be a turning point or an incredible moment of catharsis where suddenly the season changes. And we've seen that in other years in Madrid. But anyway, we'll soon talk more about the football aspect, with that element of craziness that will come in from time to time. But first, Álava, not the player, but the province, this Vitoria, a match in which Madrid also doesn't show anything sport-wise to hold on to. Simply, well, to hold on, because they held on with 10 players, which is very commendable. And then there's that component that's always present in every Real Madrid away game in this league, which is like a battlefield, hatred from the stands, kicks from the opponent, theatrics, the referee's bar set very high, no yellow cards given. It's very difficult to play like that, right? Beyond the fact that the team is, not doing well.
And it is because I believe that at a media level and on social media, we focus, and it is normal, on the place that one might understand as the most decisive, which they can be, within the impact they have. Guller's play, Rudiger's play, each one, they will see it one way or another. But for me, without any doubt, the most serious thing is, let's say, the Malaysian boot, right? Let's put it this way. It relates to something many of us have denounced on our channels, Miguel, and I think you have too. which has to do with the parameter and the gauge for yellow cards, which are ultimately, let's say, a stopper element to curb what the game at Mendizorosa became, repetitive and annoying, right? Right? With Mourinho, Manu Sanchez, and several players who were committing fouls with and without the ball, because I remember many runs by Mbappe, movements by Rodrigo and so on that were involved with shoves, off the ball actions, hits, and so on. In fact, this is not an excuse for Mbappe, because that tackle he made was reckless, just like Manu's. But what I mean is that in these kinds of things is where you see the referee's impunity and the refereeing level. And Sotogrado, he did not see key plays that he had to resort to. The VAR had to intervene there and all, but especially in what seems to me, besides the football issues where we've been very clear, exceedingly clear, that Real Madrid there's something that also needs to be added to the balance, which is this issue of not showing cards and such hinders you a lot in terms of game rhythm. It hinders you a great deal. If you already have problems when it comes to bringing the ball out, when it comes to being dynamic, but if on top of that, you have out there to an element that is constantly holding onto the cart, then yes, all this is disguised, starts using them in the 44th minute, but then also in the second half, 70s, etc., when they have clearly fouled you continually. And in terms of football, well, Real Madrid, with many problems in creation and bringing the ball out, the team often in its own half, really on a football level. In fact, possibly the best news was the great goal by Camavinga, but also his performance, and he won't be against Arsenal, but I think Camavinga was one of the best pieces of news. And some detail of Arda Güler, which I did like, initiated the break pass in Camavinga's play, making the penetration pass because the team was very flat, very horizontal. It was difficult to go deeper, something more or less well-known that has happened to Madrid in several matches. And it's true that Alaves practically doesn't create anything. It's a team. Goudet is very limited in terms of creation, but Madrid didn't have many situations to defend. Some, yes, but not too numerous. And I think the match, once it levels out to 10 against 10 as well, you say, there was a lot of time holding out in their own half. Then when it was 10 against 10, in those 20 minutes, the game opened up with more space, but more open situations that Madrid did not take advantage of. I remember Bellingham's chance, which honestly caught my attention that he missed. Vinicius also had something there. Sache. But, well, it's a match that unfortunately was overshadowed entirely by the strong tackle from Mbappe, who I think there was already another play before as well. I noticed him a little. I'm not saying unhinged, but bit lost. I don't see him in tune. Neither with nor without the ball.
Yeah, well, you mentioned earlier in the start of runs, when the ball is leaving the foot of the player, making the pass, in many cases with Madrid, it's the central player always looking for what sometimes works out. But in Madrid, I think they sometimes overuse that option. But, well, I think it's also due to a lack of ideas, unfortunately. Of course, that's when the defender always hits him more than the elbow, since he can't use elbows, the shoulder blow. And not in the face either, but in an area, well, here, I don't know what. I mean, things that hurt, but, the defender knows that they are not going to give him a yellow card for the aggressiveness of that action. And also not where the ball is. I mean, it's not an action where they get a card. So they abuse that. So the Madrid player gets fed up. Mbappe takes it the wrong way. I'm not justifying it, of course. The phone gets plugged in here. I'm not justifying it, of course, but these are situations that end up really agitating the players. And then this one lost his head. But what I was getting to, and you mentioned it before, Camavinga and Güler, two good matches or good moments, but they won't be in the match. So it turns out that the good news is they won't be in the match against Kena. But he will be there and was greatly missed. And I think he is going to be a central figure, because I think that, and look how much criticism we have given Tchouaméni. There have been moments in the season when he has been very bad. I think now he is one of those who is doing the best. And I don't know about you, but if for you Madrid's play on Wednesday has to revolve around Chua, Emtram, I mean, you think he's a very important player to start with. And notice he's not an offensive guy by any means, but at least you have a midfielder who will give the order that wasn't provided in London.
For me, the key to where Tchouaméni improved when the game became a little more open. In the second half, he had 20 to 25 good minutes. What you said about the long game, which Madrid is excessive in, they looked for Tchouaméni a lot in that. Courtois looked for a second complay situation of Tchouaméni so he could extend there. And I agree. And in this, I've been very critical. Madrid has to have more variations and wealth to get the ball out. But regarding Tchouaméni, he has to be very important. I don't think the team has to be arranged around him so much. But the key is what he contributes in what he's brilliant at and how he works with the other pivot. Camavinga will not play, with whom he does not mix well due to various reasons. And here a debate will arise. How will Ancelotti manage Ceballos? That is to say, will he start him for 60 minutes? Because I think Dani will be active. That is, he will be in the match, but we don't know for how many minutes. The key is to start him or as a kind of impact substitute based on what the match suggests or requires for 20 or 25 minutes. I think Ceballos and Tchouaméni as a pair can and have worked well, in fact. I mean, it's something that has already been demonstrated this season that can be functional. I'm not saying brilliant, I'm saying functional. In fact, I will go further. Possibly today, among the midfielders, Ceballos, Camavinga, Modric, Tchouaméni, and so on, perhaps the best pair in the 4-4-2 that works is Ceballos with Tchouaméni right now. So if I were Ancelotti, staggered, right? Staggered, meaning Dani in a position to play the ball on the left side and Tchouaméni on the right. Patao is staggered to give each other an outlet, which is very important, as you mentioned, to organize the team in the ball exit. But Ceballos has been the cleanest player in ball distribution among all the midfielders, the player with the best percentage impact when losing possession, and he is the player who gave the most continuity in midfield among these four, excluding Bellingham from the equation, as he is a different type of midfielder currently. So I think that Ceballos has to definitely be a weapon to be able to come back. And I believe that Ancelotti is going to rely on her. The key is to see if as a starter or as a super sub. Yeah? If I had to bet, I think he will start alongside Tchouaméni, who, as you said, is important. Moreover, this year it has been shown that when Madrid has performed best, they have had this pairing, Tchouaméni-Ceballos, and I think for the last 20 minutes, the Modric factor in those moments, it may be the clear situation. I see it quite like that, Miguel. I don't see Dani playing the full 90 minutes. In general, also, physically, he sometimes struggles to maintain the tone for 90 minutes, but I think he will handle 60 minutes.
And let the rest be played by Modric, who, after all, in that sense, are the two most similar players there in the midfield, right? But of course, what happens that if you put, that's why I asked you about being staggered, because Ceballos has to bring the ball out more times than Tchouaméni, actually.
Especially on the side, sorry to interrupt you, Miguel, but especially on the side of Rudiger and Fran. I clearly divide Madrid into two quadrants, right? The left quadrant and the right. So when you see Madrid's ball progression with Asensio and Valverde, who's going to play as a right wing back, I don't think Luka will play this match. Valverde and Asensio has a good start and good ball handling on the start, and Valverde has the ability to break through and the skill to bring the ball out from the more lateral quadrant of the right flank. What is the issue? Rudiger and Fran Garcia. Rudiger and Fran Garcia have a touch, obviously. Then Valverde and Raul Asensio in short play. Rudiger is a bit better in long play, but it's difficult for him because he is a large player. You know, he's not at his most skillful right now, surely. So in this case, Madrid tends to have to return to Courtois or play a long pass and somewhat sell the ball, seeing where the second play lands to, then try to win the duel. It's very important that Ceballos appears there. Ceballos can appear all over the center of the field because he likes to be heavily involved with the ball, supporting, right, and things like that. But it is important for Ceballos to help Rudiger and Fran Garcia. It is very important to create a series of support mechanisms there because Arsenal, moreover, Arteta will know that. And there he will try to intercept in some situations or at least force a turnover. So that Madrid isn't continuous. For Madrid to come back, they have to be a continuous team. That is, you will obviously lose the ball because you will lose it, but try to reduce your rate of turnovers as Madrid loses the ball too much. Therefore, Ceballos is very important for that.
When you say that, Ceballos more on the left side profile, Tchouaméni on the right side, but always as staggered midfielders, meaning occupying that central corridor, you know? appearing on the right and left margins of the field. But of course, that means Bellingham, I understand it like this, should focus a bit more. But the wings, I mean, both Vinicius and Rodrigo work a lot more there, cover much more space in mistakes out wide. Either that, or Bellingham also moves a bit to the left because he will do the same job as Rodrigo on the right, being the one of the front three who drops back the most, with Vinicius and Mbappe staying up front to do what they've been doing all season, which is to say, defend little, that is, provide little support there. Which of the two do you see?
Let's see, let's say everything has a, let's say, tactical variety, positional. Also, it depends on what the opponent asks of you, because Bellingham will also move in relation to what Odegaard allows him. I mean, there are many positional matchups here, not just what you can do, but what they allow you. But for me, it is very important that Bellingham can turn with the left profile of Real Madrid's game and turn inward. In fact, the best play of the first half from Real Madrid comes from Bellingham's left profile in a cut and passes to Mbappe, who fails the one-on-one with
Correct, it's true.
David Raya. Is one of the best quality plays, one of the few plays of plus quality Real Madrid, where you say, wow, what a good play, what a good pass, and how Mbappe found the space very well there and then finished terribly. So I think it's very important for Bellingham to be able to cut inside diagonally, to look for breakaway runs, but also to seek support. It is important. And then in defense, without the ball, Madrid will defend as it has been defending. That is, as you rightly say, Vinicius and Mbappe really have had very little. First, this system is meant to protect Vinicius a lot and the return. I think there has been around, and so the one, let's say, having more, Bellingham is the one being forced more, who also, moreover, physically, I see him worn out. I think he has a lot of tactical overexertion of tracking back and retreating. He also does not let's say, he doesn't want to minimize efforts. He likes to give it his all. Sometimes I think he needs to organize his effort a bit more.
Ration.
Pace himself more. But let's say either Vinicius did it or Bellingham did it. And Ancelotti understands that Bellingham is better at doing that and that it allows Vinicius to run. The thing is, you've already mentioned the chalk, stepping on the chalk. I think Vinicius should step on the chalk more.
Totally, absolutely. I would stick him to the left wing and say, boy, don't move from here, stay here, you head here, because that's what he does best.
Either that, or you do what Madrid did against City last year with Rodrigo and Vinicius. What was that? Vinicius as a forward and Rodrigo sticking to the line to pass to Vini and look to exploit the slower center backs. But I think...
But there's Mbappe.
Sure. So now, yes.
Unless you switch positions with Mbappe at some point during the match.
Exactly. Trying to look again for activity on the left profile, closer to Mbappe, who is the most natural for the French player. But going back to Vinicius, I think we all agree, Miguel, that to make a comeback, we will need something good from Vinicius. I don't know exactly what, maybe an outstanding match like against Borussia Dortmund, which was key in the comeback against Borussia in the regular Champions phase, or something similar. But I think he will have to contribute something, a pass, a goal, something. It's hard for me to imagine Madrid coming back without Vinicius, because it's also a match that requires a lot from Vinicius. And I'm going to explain why. I mean, always, because Madrid needs players who make a difference, but it's a match where he can come in. Eloy said it, the chaos issue, and you and I talk a lot here about Vinicius being the king of chaos when it comes to creating it for the opponent as well. He generates tactical chaos for his team because he is very chaotic, even though he is very good. But he also creates chaos for the rival. And we're in a match where we have to create a lot of chaos for Arsenal, because Arsenal is a very structured team positionally, and you have to try to destabilize them. In fact, they are a team that concedes few goals. They are solid in blocks. It's very important for Vinicius to create that chaos. For me, Vinicius, besides having leadership, he's very demanding, always asking, look, well, then Mbappe comes along and does what he did to City, who knows? But I think right now it is more important to come back in this match. I'm not saying Mbappe won't be important, don't get me wrong, but I think right now Vinicius is the key to getting in. The key to turning the madhouse into a real madhouse is Vinicius. In that, he is the king.
Yes, exactly. Look, you've already introduced it all to me because I was going to say, well, all this, the sporting aspect, what's logical, the rational and such, poorly because he is in Madrid, but he can also play a good match, especially due to the entry of someone like Ceballos, who I believe is very important for the ball movement, man. Look, Ceballos is not Cruz and Ceballos will not be Modric either. Ceballos is a very good football player.
His profile already forces you, his way of playing.
Because also Ceballos, who is a guy I always talk about the virtues and the defects of Ceballos. As a flaw, I always put first the fact that he handles the ball a lot, spins around a lot, gives it to a teammate, and then asks for it back. Sometimes that, but I think that as he's matured as a football player in recent years, and especially this season before he got injured, the virtues have outweighed the flaws. I no longer see him doing that as much, though sometimes he does, but stands out a little more how much he runs, how much he contributes, how far he reaches, how much he intercepts, and how accurately he distributes, much more than before. Well, just a little bit of that will improve the game compared to London and many of Real Madrid's matches this season. Because it does, in addition, the facts are the facts. When Gebales was doing well and was a starter, Madrid improved. When he got injured, they played poorly again. That gives me a bit of hope in the most rational sense. But you have already started with the more irrational part. If you want, we can move on to the final part of the chat. And it's about if the doors of the asylum open and everything starts getting really strange. And you've mentioned it to me, that chaos has to be generated by Vinicius. Because he's indeed the player who can generate that chaos. He is the ideal player. But at what moment? What do you visualize? What do you project? What do you think is better? I believe the answer to this question is very easy. Do you see a goal in the first 5 minutes? Is it advisable? Of course, yes. But do you think if they don't score in the first half, things are already half lost? Because you have to score 3 at least. Yes, right?
This type if it were Matu, I wouldn't say this, but just being 3, yes. Madrid has to score a goal in the first 45. I think that Madrid, when they worked in Vallecas, considered it a lot. Working on micro matches, that is at Rayo Valladolid, it was a lot about working on micro matches within the matches during Sandoval's era. And this, when I was around there, then the micros, they do the macro, we play blocks of matches, and we need to make a great comeback. We are going to play the micros. First objective, start strong, get into the match. Don't go crazy, but be strong. Go strong in the duels, be direct. As I mentioned on my channel, you can't just watch the ball receiver. Odgar can't think so much. Bujalo releases, just look at him and that's it, mate. That's basics. Attitude, energy, not letting them think too much. Silly fouls, I don't even want to discuss it. I won't even talk about silly fouls. You have to be very perfectionist in your own work. Obviously, you have to come back from 3 goals against Arsenal. If you're not a perfectionist with yourself, who are you going to be with? So, first objective, score a goal in the first 45 minutes. From there will be situations of wear and changes. The second main factor, no one talks about it. Comebacks always have second names. All of Real Madrid's comebacks have had a Rodrigo, a Camavinga. They've had these sorts of things. In one of them, you took Kroos out. If I remember correctly, in the one against Chelsea, 21-22. Just to give example.
Yes. Well, but even against Manchester United, remember what that bench was like. But all the starters were on that bench.
Of course. So I think we don't consider the 12th factor, which is the crowd. But the bench factor, Real Madrid doesn't have many players on the bench, but they do have some who can make changes. Modric Capua, Brahim Diaz, who is currently not doing well, but I trust in his cat-like agility. And there might be a moment when they already leading 2-0, lock up. And you need a small corridor. And that is Brahim, the one for the small corridor.
That's right.
Like against Atletico de Madrid at a certain moment, right? Bam, you don't expect it, goal. And there's a player that Ancelotti will see what he does. But if you are already with the horses and the trumpets and with everything.
Endrick, right?
At a certain point, you can't make the change with Endrick in the 88th minute. If you are 2-0, but I'm making it up. Do you have Mbappe worn out? You have to be brave there. Here, if you push, let's see if Mbappe who in the second half tends to fade a bit and so on.
But this man doesn't do that, man. This man believes that Mbappe, even if he's exhausted, he thinks he'll give him that last. And then, no, he looks at Hendrik, looks at Mbappe and says, no, I still trust Mbappe. Ancelotti is like that,
But
unfortunately.
at some point, he might have to put him in either for Vini or for Mbappe, maybe. And I'm not saying maybe I'm even making it up in extra time or something like that. Because in extra time, there might not be penalties. I mean, I do foresee a moment. This is a bit utopian, someone might say, but look at what he's doing with Hendrik. Yes, but out of necessity, someone might feel obliged. The Bernabeu pushes. Ancelotti, in that sense, might let himself a little carry. So I do foresee a moment where an X factor, Hendrik, Brahim, who is less so, but also an X, or even Ardas. There might be something in the realm of the substitutes, of the changes. We don't have the substitutions we had at other times. I remember 2021, 2022, Rodrigo Camavinga was brought in. The Rodrigo Camavinga there, key in fundamental situations. Well, now Modric, Hendrik, Modric, Kindergarten, Brahim, Hendrik, Brahim, Arda, I make it up, can do this for you.
If there's someone who symbolizes, who, when we close our eyes and see it happening at the Bernabeu on Wednesday, that football player, they ask you, does that moment humanize, personify it? Hendrik appears to you, right? He's a bit like a bull running wild. Joselu against Bayern, right? It's a thing, isn't it?
There will be a moment of die, right? There can be a moment of die. By die dies, as David said.
Yes. Come on.
There can be a die moment. I mean, the people should also understand us that die moment will only happen if we are 2-0, if we are already very much in the game. Obviously, if you reach 1-0 in the 90th minute, then no, logically. But in the scenario of a possible comeback and you are already in it because of the result in the comeback, there has to be a moment die, or even for extra time, thinking long term. But micro matches, 1-0, first half and second half, there are two blocks there. One, pushen, which is until the 60, when your legs still hold. But from there, you have to start organizing changes. That's where I want to see what Ancelotti does. Because after minute 60, there will be the Ceballos Modric thing, there will be the Brahim Rodrigo thing, and there might be something with maybe Tchouameni, and he puts in Valverde and moves forward there with Lucas Vazquez even. He puts him there. There will be a matter of substitutions, and it's important, Miguel. The substitutions can be vital for the...
Lucas Mozzi, we criticize Lucas when he's playing as a right back, but in attack, during moments of broken play and such, he offers a lot of interesting things. But he sometimes causes penalties because he keeps the ball close to his foot. He's very good at dribbling, entering the box from that side. He has some things. Lucas has some things that today, perhaps indeed, as you say. Look, where we are considering, I know you told me before, no, it's not just about watching Bukayo Saka, seeing what he does, or letting Odegaard turn around. No, you need to be on top of them to neutralize Arsenal, because the next thing I'm going to say is, and it would have been unfair for me to tell you that Arsenal can also score. No, it's just that you've already told me the keys to prevent Arsenal from scoring and from being an important team at the Bernabeu and not dominating the match. But indeed, as we are now projecting what we can see on Wednesday, we are imagining an Arsenal that does not score. And that's where I'm going as the final part. As the comebacks of Real Madrid in recent years have been so rare that the opponent has always scored or started by scoring, do you see a situation that forces you to make it 4-1? Do you see that scenario?
It is by no means dismissible for all that you have just mentioned, precisely looking at the history, which is such. But the feelings were that matches happened at a different moment. In fact, for some of them, like the Chelsea one, I remember Madrid arrived after a great match at Stamford Bridge and relaxed. Here, relaxation is not viable. So it's like I arrived very relaxed and now I've relaxed. They score a goal and so on. I mean, that can't happen. It can't be that, Madrid can't be so reactive to a blow from Arsenal because there's no room. Of course, there's no room for maneuver.
Well, if you're leading 2-0, they score one, and you say, come on, two more. Already caught in that crazy whirlwind.
Yes. That's why I say it can't be ruled out. But we're really going to have to rely on Courtois for the comeback. I don't see a match where Courtois doesn't intervene significantly. I think Courtois will have to save something. If Courtois doesn't save, because more than anything also, I think Courtois is going to have to save something. Mainly because the team, of course, because already in the first leg he saved, and if it weren't for Courtois, we would be going with 5. So something will have to intervene. moments of divinity, strange things will have to intervene. You see, comebacks cannot happen from a strictly rational factor. Strange things have to happen, like Mikel Merino hitting the crossbar and it going out. I want to say, this is what will happen in the case of a comeback. Logically, if it goes in off the post, I think it's the end. But we need the best attitude. Demand the attitude of giving it your all football-wise Ancelotti. Bring out the best 11 possible, the one the team needs. And from the 60th minute, as they will need the suitable changes and not relax in the reading of the match. If Madrid arrives alive, when I say alive, I mean with chances in the 60th, many things can happen, millions of things can happen, and some of them very nice. But look, they have to be alive there at the 60th.
As you say, if it doesn't reach 0 at the end of the first half, you don't watch it. I want to remind you about the Paris Saint-Germain. Not only had they beaten us there in Paris, giving us a run around that Madrid didn't get out of their own field, which was the worst period for Madrid in that league, and European Cup where they won both. And it was a great year, one we are very fond of, but it was a Madrid that struggled. And the worst time was then, because a week later, Barca scored 4-0-4. Xavi's Barca was something else. And yet, suddenly the spark ignited with Donnarumma and Benzema, and suddenly 3 guys. You know? Maybe that can suddenly happen in a second half where you're still 0-0, and suddenly a flame ignites. Bam, of course.
What happens is that since we came with 1-0 from there, not like 1-0 for them, indeed, we came here with 3-0. So it's not exactly the same.
But they had already made us Mbappe the other goal in the Bernabeu, which was...
Exactly. There were two.
You had to score 3 to beat them.
Of course, I understand you. Look, obviously, there are many ways to read the comeback, but I'm talking about the one I imagine as more organic. There are issues. Yes, of course. Look, because this is football, and Madrid is capable of scoring 2 goals in 5 minutes. So, this thing from the 60th minute or so is over, because the guys have managed to score 2 goals in 5 minutes or 2 goals in 15 minutes. And what do? Damn, we're already 2-0. What do? Do we control ourselves?
Or from one play to another, because the second and the third against Paris Saint-Germain are scored from one play to another. They kick off, recover the ball, and score the third.
Exactly. And I'm going to say something, which is that in the first half I noticed, and by the end of the match, I was more upset because of this, that Arsenal doesn't seem wonderful to me. It seems like a good team, but not remarkable. But I saw defensive mistakes in them, things that made me say, I don't see them as so invulnerable. It's not like City, that City and such would just grab you and there was nothing you could do. No, like the 4-0 there in 2023, where there was no option still. The Cruz shot off the post had to be seen. But I don't see Arsenal as one of those unbeatable teams and such. It is certainly a team. I've said it. Structural, very well organized, with the ball in pressing. Athlete works. The defense center blocks very well. Everything is very tight. But I don't see them as a team with qualities. Invincible. I don't see it. So in that, the players have to dream. They have to dream about it.
Well, let's have faith, man. We'll see what happens the next time we talk. You and I on this channel will know everything by then. But anyway, we'll also be on your channel this Tuesday for the match preview. Quique, thank you very much, man. And hopefully something crazy happens. Well managed, well prepared, with the stages, which I agree with all the stages you've given for that to happen. And then, well, that kind of crazy moment, because we have great players for it, right?
We have players to reign in the chaos. And right now, Madrid, when trying to achieve something big, probably won't do it strictly from a football perspective and the team. What brilliant, what balanced and such. Well, from chaos, we will have to try to dream. Pure Real Madrid.
Purely efficient. Another of the phrases we are all hearing these days. Sending you a big hug, Kike.
Hug. Bye, man.